I'm going to make sure. Yes, the green light is on. My microphone is actually on today. So, hello. Welcome to my backyard. Welcome to, hi, I'm Paula. These are my chickens. First things first, I'm going to let them out to graze and give them their treats because they see me and they see their treat bucket and they're getting a little rowdy. So, yeah. Hey, girls. Hi. How's things? Huh? How's things, honeys? You doing good? Yeah? Yeah, you see the treats. There you go. So, yeah, yesterday I did a stream while I was sifting through my mealworm bin to give the girls a little extra protein-rich snack. And there we go. Talked about some accommodations that I got for my ADHD at my former office job. And it was very rambly. I went on several tangents, but I felt pretty good about information that I got across and telling my story. And then I ended the stream and realized that my microphone was not on. And so there was a whole half an hour of just watching me sift through mealworm bins going. So, yeah, that was great. How to tell you that I have ADHD without telling you that I have ADHD is live stream without confirming that the audio is turned on. So, cheers. Anywho, since I am sitting like this and the camera is there and not in my hand, I may or may not see any chats come in if you're watching. Or if I do, might not be able to read them particularly well. So a broad hello and thanks for watching, all that jazz. And once I'm done rambling, I may get up and actually read what you're writing. So I apologize for missing anything in the moment. Anyway, take 2 of talking about my experience in my former office job as a corporate drone. Chickens are foraging right around the stand. So if you get knocked over, I'll fix it. But sorry in advance if that happens. Anyway, yes, I used to be a little corporate drone in an office and didn't discover I had ADHD until I was 39, and we were mandated by the company to start returning to the office as starting with a hybrid work model during kind of later stages of COVID restrictions and easing up on restrictions. And I was, having a very hard time coming back to the office and struggling a fair bit with that environment after, I dealt with it before. I'm a grown adult. I would get on my business. I was doing fine. So I thought until working from home um, was, made possible. And, props to my company that they did a really good job getting everyone outfitted to work from home quickly when COVID restrictions happened. But by the same token, they had a very traditional corporate stance on working all together in the office in a nice open office concept, low-walled cubicles that they put plexiglass barriers up to raise the height of the cubicle walls to, um, you know, restrict free airflow, free germ access a little bit for during the plague days, and never took them down. And plexiglass is quite reflective, and office overhead lights are just big fluorescent things, and that was quite upsetting to my nervous system. Um, so anyway, uh, as part of transitioning back to going into the office work, I was struggling and discovered I have ADHD, and um, through that, I decided that it would be to my advantage to disclose my diagnosis to my um, immediate supervisor, to my employer, to um, get, because there were reasonable accommodations that could be made to make everybody's life better. Because, like, sometimes you don't realize you're struggling until you're not anymore. And that was my experience with working in an office versus working from home. And so during the senior management push to get everyone back to the office as full time as possible, I said, yeah, that's really not going to work for me. And my immediate leadership could see that because you know days in the office versus days at home, there was a noticeable difference in productivity, particularly by the afternoon. um, I was just getting, like, there were too much sensory overwhelm things um, in the office that were impeding. Why are you following her around? She freaks out. Yeah, go look over there for bugs. All right. Benny is still nervous about getting picked on. So, whole saga is conversation for not what I'm talking about today. Also, I need to go get I need to refill my prescription. I've been out of my meds for a while. You can maybe tell when I'm talking. Anyway, yeah, so my leadership was quite understanding and very reasonable, and we just worked things out. But as the company got pushed more and more for full time as much as possible in the office, I decided to go through a more official channel of, like, requesting a medical accommodation for my, uh, attention disorder. And um, so what I ended up requesting for kind of a more like physical environment needs was no more than 2 non-consecutive days per week in the office. Because it was not only, like, in the office by the afternoon, everybody could tell I was, like, my brain was checking out. I was off with the pixies and just not not being particularly uh, helpful to my team by the end of the day. And and it exhausted me, like, between getting up, needing to get up an hour earlier to commute, and then really not being, like, fully off from the workday until I got home, also more than an hour, like, over an hour later than I would have, um, than just when I'm at home, log off, I'm done. Um, it turned an 8 hour, well, 9 hours with the lunch break. So it turned an 8 hour day into like 11 hours all told out of the house, which is a long day. And It's just more exhausting to be actively regulating my attention and focus a lot more when I'm surrounded by other people and fluorescent lights and fans and all the things that are happening at me at an office. So it's just way more exhausting. So no back-to-back days in the office and no more than 2 in a week. And that was approved. That was great. One thing I also worked out with my leadership, I hope they still have the room there for anyone else who would benefit from it. But because like how they renovated the building to be an open concept, um, like open office concept for pretty butterfly. Hi. Um, and that like even the meeting rooms had glass walls, glass doors. So, all the meeting rooms felt like aquariums, little fish bowls. And then, um, there was like one, maybe two, like, no, because there was a little telephone room where people could go to take more sensitive phone calls. But even that's had a window in the door. There was one little tiny office on our floor that had a regular door and no windows. Uh, so that got turned into like a more sensory friendly room, that you know hopefully is still there. Um, it still had the regular office fluorescent lights, but they brought in a lamp, and the overhead light had its own switch for that room. Thank goodness it was not tied to the kind of more general lights for the floor. So you could turn off that light in the room and have the lamp on. So if there was a time where I had to be focusing on something and would really benefit from not being interrupted, and don't go for my lunch. You got your own grazing stuff. No, I got my eye on you. Yeah, so I could go and I could use that room and like book a meeting time, and like it was a bookable room. But as long as someone else wasn't in there, I could just go in there and work and focus. And it was immensely helpful to me to be able to get a break from the sensory onslaught of being in that office. So that was another accommodation. So just working from home a majority of the time and only being in the office at most 2 days a week and not consecutive. And while I was at the office, having that kind of more sensory friendly room to be able to like go in, um, and be away from everything else, hugely helpful. Um, so those were kind of the more like physical accommodations that were very helpful for me. Um, Other things were more just kind of the working dynamic, things that, I mean, they're helpful things to do to make a team more effective anyway. But things like verbal instructions or requests were always followed up in writing, because sometimes the brain leaps to conclusions or interprets something, maybe in not entirely the way that it was intended, or I might remember things possibly a little bit differently, just because as someone's talking, my brain would finish a sentence, and even if I heard what the person actually said, it might not, what I remember might be what my brain decided the end of the sentence should have been. So following up verbal things in writing. And then another thing, that my supervisor instituted was when he would facilitate meetings for the team, whenever possible, he would leave time at the end to kind of be able to circle back to any previous topics because sometimes, um, sometimes I would kind of, or anybody really, so like not just somebody with ADHD, anybody could, you know, because as you can tell, as I'm talking, I'm going off on tangents here, there, and everywhere, because I don't have a train of thought. I have a soup pot. That's why my channel is called Brain Soup. And, as I'm talking and stirring things around, something else might get into the ladle and, oh, here's this thing. And so I'm thinking over here and also trying to talk about this over here. So in meetings with a team, trying to stay on topic, I know full well that I can't be like verbally jumping over here when the topic is going this way, because that's not going to be conducive to effective communication for the team as a whole. But this information over here might still be valuable. So, one thing, yeah, just it was a simple thing that my supervisor put in place where wherever possible, if time allowed for it, he would like allocate agenda item on at the end of the meeting to circle back to anything previous, or you know kind of open discussion about anything that someone might have thought up during earlier portions of the meeting that um, it wasn't a good time to discuss in the moment, but should still be brought up and discussed and would be helpful. So, um, yeah, that was um, it. It alleviated a lot of stress for me. I don't know about if anyone else. I would hope that that would just be more um, broadly helpful, just to make meetings more effective generally. Um, to have, just to have, and not like not a round table where everybody is expected to like go around in a circle and take like taking turns to say something, because that isn't always very helpful or effective. But just a more free form, okay, does anyone have anything to circle back to or add or whatever? So, particularly helpful for me with how my brain works, but also just I would say a good practice for being effective. So, I think that is yeah, that's really all I had to say about workplace accommodations that were helpful for me, that I requested and was able to get and made sense within the context of what my job was. And hopefully you found that information helpful. And now I will shut up and eat my lunch and just enjoy my chickies. They're kind of over here. And let's just whoop. Eh, kind of weird shade situation, but that's where they are for now. So you don't have to watch me chew. I'll just sit here in the shade. Actually, now that I'm done talking, I will take the phone, take the camera off the little stand so that and flip it around so that I can aim it at where the chickens are. So there we go. anyone who's been following along with Benny's brooding and molting and getting bullied journey, she's not separated at all in a little isolation cage that's underneath the coop there. It's still there. I'll keep it there for anyone else who needs to get separated for any reason, but they're mostly all getting along there, and Benny's not letting herself get like fully bullied. She's she's stealing food from other people, like stealing treats, and sneaking away, running away when she has to. So life's good in the coop. Hi, Duchess. How you doing today, girlie? Hmm? How you doing? There's someone else over there. Who's over there? Hmm? Sneaking away, stealing all the apple slices. Hi, Benny. What'd you freak out over, huh? Hi, Benny. I'm pretty sure you already got all the mealworms that I tossed there yesterday. You definitely got them all within like 2 minutes of me putting them there. So I don't think you're gonna find any more there, Georgie. I mean, sure, just keep digging up my lawn. Why not? Who needs grass anyway? Are you trying to dig a new dust bath hole there, Georgie? Maybe. Guess what? What are you doing on the patio? What are you doing on the deck, huh? There's no snacks there for you. Yeah, please don't leave me any little traps. I would much rather you fertilize my lawn. My deck does not need any surprises. Yeah, yeah, you too, Priscilla. Nothing on the deck for you. What's that about, Georgie, huh? Hello, guess what? What are you doing? You actually got like a good little pile of like dirt and grass kicked up there. I think you're actually gonna make a bear patch. Huh. So maybe I should toss all the mealworms in your actual enclosure from now on, huh? So you don't rip up bear patches on my lawn. I guess so. All right, well, I should probably get my the rest of my chores out, cleaning their coop, and then get them back inside their enclosure before they actually finish ripping up chunks of, completely ripping up chunks of my lawn. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me today and enjoying my chickens with me and listening to my rambling if you did. Have a great rest of your day or night or whatever time zone you happen to be in. And I'll catch you later. Toodles.